All right, let's talk about something that I think drives a lot of us crazy. You've got this amazing top-of-the-line hardware, lightning-fast network cards, and yet your applications feel sluggish. So what's going on? Today, we're going on a quest for speed. We're going to dive deep into the virtual world to find out why our networks are so slow, and more importantly, how to fix it. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off by looking at this paradox in modern networking. Then we're going to put on our detective hats and hunt down two major culprits: constant interruptions bogging down our CPUs, and a single-lane traffic jam that's killing our virtual network cards. After that, we'll explore some really cool kernel bypass techniques, trace a packet's journey from start to finish in a fully optimized system, and then wrap things up by using everything we've learned to solve a real-world troubleshooting mystery. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's the fundamental problem. We have physical networks that are just screaming fast. We're talking 40, even 100 gigabits per second. But the moment we run our apps inside virtual machines or containers, which, let's be honest, is how most things run in the cloud today, that performance can just fall off a cliff. And take a look at this. This chart really puts it in perspective. On a native host, you might be cruising along at, say, 23 gigabits per second. Pretty good. But then you add a standard container overlay network and bam, performance plummets by over 70%, all the way down to just 6.4 Gbps. Now remember, the hardware didn't change at all. So the big question is, where did all that speed go? Let's go find our first culprit. The first thing that's stealing our performance is the way the network card, the NIC, talks to the CPU. You see, the traditional way it's done is just fundamentally broken for high-speed networks. The best way to think about it is like a constantly ringing doorbell. Imagine this. For every single packet that arrives, and on a busy network, we're talking thousands of these every second, the NIC triggers hardware interrupt. This is like someone ringing the doorbell. And every time it rings, the CPU has to stop whatever important thing it was doing, save its work, a process called context switching, go answer the door to handle the packet, and then try to get back to what it was doing. It is just this endless stream of interruptions that keeps the CPU from doing any real sustained work. And here's the technical breakdown of that doorbell analogy. A hardware interrupt is literally a demand for the CPU's immediate attention. Now, when packet rates get really high, the sheer number of these demands just creates a massive bottleneck. The CPU ends up spending way more time switching contexts, answering the door, than it does actually processing the data that's arrived. And for your applications, that translates directly to higher latency and lower throughput. Clearly, we need a better system. So the solution is to flip the model from interruption to polling. Instead of that frantic, constantly ringing doorbell, I want you to picture a calm receptionist. This receptionist doesn't jump up every single time someone walks in. No, instead, they periodically check the waiting room and then process everyone who's waiting all at once, in a single, efficient batch. And that is the core idea behind a Linux kernel feature called NAPI. So how does this actually work? Well, with NAPI, which stands for New API, the system basically tells the NIC to quiet down. It disables those hardware interrupts during heavy traffic. Then the kernel just pulls the NIC's memory buffer, grabs all the packets that are waiting there, and processes them all together as one big batch. This whole job is handled by what's called a software interrupt, or softirq, which is a much more efficient, lower priority way to get this done. The bottom line is, one single poll can take the place of hundreds of hardware interrupts, and that dramatically cuts down on CPU overhead. The result? A CPU that's actually free to run your applications. Okay, so we've solved the interrupt storm, which is great, but as soon as we fix one problem, a new bottleneck pops up. Even with our super efficient batch processing, all of that work is still being crammed through a single CPU core, and on today's multi-core servers, that's just a huge waste. This problem gets especially bad in the world of virtualization. You see, the host machine might be doing a great job spreading traffic across all of its cores. Think of it like a big multi-lane highway. But when all that traffic gets to a standard virtual machine, its virtual NIC often only has one queue. It's like forcing an 8-lane highway to merge down into a single toll booth. Everything just grinds to a halt. And that's the technical reality of the single queue virtio-net bottleneck. You can give your guest VM a ton of virtual CPUs, but if they all have to get in line to use a single network queue, your performance is never going to scale. The VM itself becomes the bottleneck, no matter how fast or optimized the host machine is. The solution here, thankfully, is pretty intuitive. If you have a multi-lane highway, you build a multi-lane bridge. We can actually configure the virtual NIC to have multiple queues, just like a high-performance physical NIC would. This is called Multiqueue virtio-net, and it's what allows for true parallel packet processing inside the virtual machine. And this isn't just some abstract theory. You can actually do this. It's basically a two-step process. On the host, in your VM's configuration file, you tell it how many queues you want by setting this queues n parameter. A good rule of thumb is to match this to the number of vCPUs in your VM. Then you hop inside the guest OS and use a command like ethtool to tell the network interface to actually use those new queues. And just like that, you've connected the multi-lane highway on the host to the new multi-lane bridge in your guest. So we've optimized how we handle packets, and we've enabled parallel processing. That's a huge step, but there's still one more major source of overhead to tackle: the packet's journey through the host's operating system kernel. For the absolute best performance, we need to bypass it entirely. This table lays out the main Virtio configurations, and you can really see the evolution. Pure Virtio is the slowest, because the packet has to go from the guest, through the QEMU user space process, and then to the host kernel. That causes a ton of VM exits and context switches. Kernel vhost is better. It moves that work into the host kernel, which cuts down on overhead. But the real champion here is vhost user. With this setup, the packet bypasses the host kernel completely. It goes from a user space process on the host, like DPDK, directly into the VM's memory. This almost completely eliminates context switching, and it's the gold standard for any high-throughput workload. Okay, let's put it all together now. We've tackled interrupts, we've added parallel queues, and we've bypassed the kernel. So what does the journey of a single packet look like now in this fully optimized stack? Well, it starts at the physical NIC, where a feature called receive side scaling, or RSS, intelligently spreads packets across different hardware queues. Then NAPI kicks in, using polling to process those packets in efficient batches. Next, vhost user takes the packet and delivers it straight to the VM's memory, completely avoiding the host kernel. And finally, inside the VM, our multi-queue virtual NIC hands the packet off to the correct vCPU for processing. You can see how every single step is designed for maximum speed and minimum overhead. So we've designed this beautiful, high-performance stack. But we all know theory is one thing, and production is, well, it's another. This deep understanding of how the network stack works becomes absolutely critical when things inevitably break. So let's apply what we've learned to a super common and really frustrating problem: connections that just suddenly reset out of nowhere. The usual suspect here is a TCP reset packet, or RST. Now, this isn't a polite goodbye. It's the network's version of a return to sender stamp, a very abrupt, this conversation is over right now. This typically happens if you send a packet to a port that isn't open or to a connection that the other side has already forgotten about. But what happens when the reset packet doesn't seem to be coming from the server you're actually trying to talk to? This is where we get to play detective. The crucial clue is a value in the IP header called time to live, or TTL. This number goes down by 1 at every single router a packet hops through. So let's say normal packets from your server show up with a TTL of maybe 46. But then an RST packet arrives with a completely different TTL, like 85. That's your smoking gun. That reset was not sent by the server. It was forged and sent by some device in the middle, like a firewall, that's much closer to you on the network path. Problem solved. In the end, what we've seen is that network performance isn't about any one single thing. It's about optimizing the entire stack, from the physical wire all the way up to the application. We've dealt with interrupts, we've scaled out with multiple queues, and we've bypassed the kernel. But the quest for speed never really ends. And that leaves us with one final question to think about. Now that we've optimized the host, the hypervisor, and the guest, what's the next bottleneck just waiting to be discovered?